What if life punished you not for your mistakes, but for your poverty? Imagine being fired, humiliated, and tossed aside simply because you didn't have enough money to look the part. Stay with me until the end, because this story will break your heart and then heal it in a way you'll never forget. And before we begin, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Goodness Corner for more life-changing stories. Clara Jenkins was 22, a fragile flame in a storm of hardship. She had grown up in a forgotten corner of the city, where cracked sidewalks told stories of broken dreams and where the sound of hunger was more common than laughter. She had lost her father when she was 12, a factory accident that stole not just his life but also her family's fragile financial balance. Her mother, frail and perpetually sick, couldn't work. So Clara, with her tired brown shoes and thrift store uniform, became the breadwinner long before she had even finished high school. Every morning, she worked double shifts at Riverside Dine and Grill, balancing trays heavier than her own weight, smiling at rude customers, and swallowing tears when her stomach growled. She never complained, even when her coworkers mocked her faded shoes or when her manager sneered at her second-hand uniform that was patched more times than it was whole. But there was one thing Clara never lost, her kindness. She gave part of her tiny paycheck to buy medicine for her mother, sometimes skipping meals to make sure her little brother didn't go to bed hungry. And every night, when exhaustion threatened to bury her, she whispered to herself, "One day, life will change." That day, however, didn't come as a blessing. It came as cruelty. It was a busy Friday evening. The restaurant buzzed with noise, the air heavy with the smell of fried onions and perfume from wealthy customers. Clara was rushing between tables when her heel cracked. The worn shoe, which she had glued back together 3 times, finally gave up. She stumbled, spilling a tray of expensive wine across the floor. The restaurant froze. A man in a suit shouted angrily, the wine staining his clothes. Clara fell to her knees, apologizing, her voice trembling. The manager, Mr. Howard, stormed over, his face red with fury. "You're a disgrace," he bellowed. "You come in here looking like a beggar, and now this? I should have known better than to hire someone who can't even afford proper shoes." Clara's face burned. Customers whispered, some laughed. She tried to explain, tried to beg for another chance. But Mr. Howard's voice was sharp and merciless. "You're fired. Take your poverty somewhere else." The words cut through her like knives. Her co-workers smirked, as if her humiliation was their entertainment. She stood there trembling, her eyes filling with tears, her heart shattering into 1,000 silent pieces. She didn't know how she would tell her sick mother. She didn't know how she would buy food for her brother. As she picked up her torn shoe and slowly walked out of the restaurant, laughter followed her like cruel echoes. She stepped into the cold night, rain falling hard, mixing with her tears. She whispered into the darkness, "Why is being poor a crime?" What Clara didn't know was that someone had seen everything. At the corner table, a man had watched in silence. His name was Ethan Cross. A billionaire whose face was on magazine covers, known for his towering skyscrapers and luxury hotels. But tonight, he wasn't dressed in power or prestige. He was simply a man, sitting quietly, studying the young waitress who had been crushed for nothing more than her poverty. And when Clara stepped into the storm, Ethan pushed his chair back and followed. The rain lashed against the pavement, soaking Clara's thin clothes as she walked aimlessly down the street. She hugged herself, shivering, her body trembling not just from the cold but from despair. She had lost her job, her only source of income, and the weight of her family's survival pressed on her chest like a stone. Then she heard footsteps. "Miss," a deep voice called gently. She turned and froze. The man who had been sitting at the corner table now stood before her. His umbrella shielded him from the rain, but his eyes, calm, kind, and piercing, were fixed on her. "I saw what happened," he said. Clara quickly wiped her tears, ashamed. "Please, sir, I don't want pity. I'll figure something out." Ethan shook his head. It wasn't your fault. Poverty isn't shameful. Cruelty is. Her lips trembled. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. She whispered, "But, what am I supposed to do now? My family depends on me. I can't even afford new shoes." For a moment, Ethan studied her, as if weighing her soul. Then, without hesitation, he extended his hand. "Come with me," he said softly. "Let me help you." Clara stared at his hand, hesitant, scared. She had been betrayed too many times. But something in his voice carried a warmth that felt safe. Slowly, trembling, she placed her hand in his. That one gesture changed her life. Ethan didn't just give her money. He gave her dignity. The next morning, Clara found herself in his office, a room lined with glass windows overlooking the city skyline. Ethan introduced her not as a charity case, but as a new partner in training. He enrolled her in professional courses, gave her access to mentorship, and treated her like an equal. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Clara transformed. She learned business, leadership, and confidence. She bought her mother proper medicine, enrolled her brother in school, and slowly built a new identity, not as a poor girl trapped in survival, but as a woman rising into her power. 1 year later, the same restaurant where she had been humiliated was hosting a special gala dinner. Ethan brought Clara with him, now dressed in an elegant gown, her head held high. Mr. Howard, the cruel manager, nearly choked when he saw her walk in beside the billionaire. Whispers filled the room. "Who is she? Is she his fiancée? She looks like a queen." Ethan stood tall, but before speaking, he turned to Clara and gently squeezed her hand. Then, in front of everyone, he said, "This woman once served tables here. She was humiliated for being poor. But today, she is my partner, because I saw what others didn't. Her strength, her kindness, her worth." The crowd gasped. Mr. Howard's face turned pale. Clara's eyes filled with tears, but this time, they were tears of pride. For the first time in her life, she wasn't ashamed of being poor. She was proud of the journey that had shaped her. That night, when she stood under the same neon sign that once witnessed her humiliation, Ethan turned to her and said, "Clara, the world doesn't decide your value. You do. And from today, you'll never walk alone again." She smiled through her tears, gripping his hand tightly. For the first time, hope wasn't just a dream, it was real. So, dear viewer, remember this: poverty is not weakness. Kindness, perseverance, and courage are worth more than gold. And if you believe in yourself, life has a way of turning pain into power. Before you go, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Goodness Corner. Because here, we believe in stories that prove goodness still exists.